Hey, today our project in 370 Lab is going to be talking about constraints. Constraints are the factors that affect the way that we move. There are multiple types of constraints. Constraints are organism, environment, and task. For us, we're not going to be talking about organism, we're going to be talking about individual because we are all human. Organism constraints involve two subcategories, structural and functional constraints. Structural constraints involve things like our height, our weight, and the shapes of our bodies, whereas functional constraints can involve our flexibility, our psyche, and the way that we act, as well as our strength of our individual body parts. Environmental constraints. Environmental constraints involve how our environment affects our movement. For example, if we're walking up a hill, it's going to affect us differently than walking on a flat surface. And task constraints are the rules that we follow in everyday life. All of these factors are what are involved when we talk about constraints. And today, in our video, we'll show you examples of each and every one.
Good game, man.
Sure, definitely. Hey man, have you seen my phone?
I have no idea, but I'll give it a call. It's right there.
Oh,
How did it get up there, though?
Man, if only I was tall enough to reach it. Speaking of which, you know, this is a great example of a structural constraint.
Yeah?
Our height is involved, and actually, I think the tallest one of us would be able to reach it.
I'll help you out. I think LeBron put it up there as a joke.
Oh. Structural constraints are important, as we've seen in our last skit, because a shorter individual may not have been able to reach my phone, unlike Dave, who was slightly taller than me. Structural constraints. For example, our weight. We're going to compare each of our individual weights on the scale so you can see how we're all structured differently. According to the scale, I'm about 182.8 pounds, which can be rounded to roughly around 183. Let's see, Dave.
I'm about 180.
And finally, let's see Andy's weight.
I'm about 161. Yeah.
Alright, all of our weights are different, and this is all based off our genetics. These are structural constraints.
Today I'm here to talk about functional constraints such as flexibility. You see how far your range of motion is, so I'm going to demonstrate my flexibility. I'm supposed to stretch, so can't touch my hands. As you can see how far I am, I'm almost touching, but I'm not. Now David is going to demonstrate his. As you can see he's less flexible than me, so we have different range of motions. And now we're going to demonstrate for Iman's flexibility. As you can see, his flexibility is much more efficient than David and I's, and he can touch his hands.
Functional constraints. For example, our strength in our legs. And how high, we're going to show that by how high we can jump and reach this pillar right here. I'll begin. Now for Andy. And now for Dave. As you saw, we saw Andy reach the highest, we saw Dave reach in between, and I reached the lowest. This proves that our strength in our lower legs functionally are stronger than our legs.
Temperature is an example of environmental constraint. Environmental constraints. Around December, it gets really cold outside, and you need a jacket to come out. But when you go inside, the temperature isn't as low as outside. And they got the heat blasting, so you don't really need a jacket in here.
My name's Andy. Today I'm going to demonstrate environmental constraint. So here today I'm about to go to school. So right now I'm walking. Right now I'm walking on a flat plain surface, so it's much easier for me to walk. Now I'm walking up to a hill. Now this is much harder for me. I have to use more my leg muscles and bend my knees more since gravity is pushing me more down against me, so I have to go up against gravity itself. So I'm walking up, use more leg muscles, add some care to the flat surface down there. So it was much easier than walking uphill. I'm here today to talk about task constraints. Task constraints are a set of rules that are bound to particular sports such as soccer in order to achieve a common goal. In soccer, the game of soccer, when we're supposed to score a goal, we always have to use our feet. We cannot use our hands at all. So when we play soccer, we always use our feet all the time, as you can see. So
This is a task constraint. In this skit, we're going to talk about basketball. You can only dribble the ball with your hands and not your feet, compared to Andy and playing soccer. One of the articles we used was assessing hopping developmental levels in childhood using wearable inertial sensor devices. The purpose was to examine the use of inertial sensors to evaluate developmental differences in hopping over distances. As motor skills proficiency improves, children may become more active and fit. Individual constraints in the article was height, weight, and flexibility, and this could affect the outcome of the time. The task constraint was hopping from one cone to the other cone without stopping. An environmental constraint would be the being inside versus outside, light source in the gym, and the space in the gym.
hey guys, today I want to talk about a discussion related to the article about constraints. I'm going to talk about Paralympic Games, which are the Special Olympics for athletes that have disabilities in order for them to play their sport. The issue of this is that wheelchair athletes, we're trying to figure out how they can train hard to maximize performance while reducing the risk of injuries. And the way to do that is to examine how various constraints act upon the wheelchair and how they can alter their hand rim wheelchair performance during a sporting activity. Wheelchair basketball players are assigned a classification from 1.0 to 4.5. 1.0 as the lowest, 4.5 the highest. For low point basketball wheelchair players, they have the least physical function and they cannot actively stabilize their pelvis, so they rely really a lot on the external support of the wheelchair for stability. So their seat is angled downward from the front and to back, while on the other hand the high point players require less stability since they have the most physical function.
According to the article Adapting Activities for All Children by Nancy Getchell and Linda Gagan, it is important to understand the constraints of different individuals, especially those with disabilities. As we know, constraints and restraints are different in that while restraints limit an individual's ability and focus on negative context, constraints focus on all other factors that will allow an individual to influence the world around them and increase proficiency with a different kind of movement. Individual, environmental, and task constraints always interact dynamically, meaning things can change completely in different situations. Physical educators that work with children with disabilities should be able to include those children in all the physical activities that other children play by changing the environmental or task constraints for the children. For example, a child in a wheelchair should be able to play goalie for a soccer game by either making the goal smaller so the child has more room to move around in, or making the goal larger so that the child can be placed in there with another goalie and he can actually have time to play as well.